Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales. We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. Sleep abandoned me. Each night, I lay awake, eyes fixed on the muted amber glow creeping through the blinds, my pulse hammering relentlessly. Beside me, Nicole slept peacefully, oblivious to the turmoil she'd ignited in my life. After 22 years together, I suddenly felt like I was lying next to a stranger. Nicole had always been predictable, comfortably predictable. She enjoyed routine, a quiet intimacy that required no surprises, no risks. But recently, she'd become someone else entirely. There was a wildness in her eyes, a boldness in her touch, and her whispers carried secrets she'd clearly learned elsewhere. Once reserved, now seductive, daring, exciting, it terrified me. My friend Richard's offhand joke echoed relentlessly. If your wife suddenly becomes a goddess overnight, she's either found religion or another man. My suspicions escalated with every subtle change. Her perfume shifted from a gentle floral scent to something deeper, intoxicating, something unfamiliar. She traded conservative dresses for outfits that clung to her body, highlighting curves she'd hidden for decades. Most troubling of all was her guarded secrecy with her phone. A new passcode, constant furtive texting, the way she'd turn the screen away whenever I approached. This was no midlife transformation, it was a betrayal, and deep inside, I knew it. I hired a private investigator named Elias Parker, a veteran detective whose penetrating gaze seemed to read secrets even before they spilled out of guilty mouths. He studied me carefully when I explained my situation. "You're certain about this, Dean?" Elias asked, tapping his pencil methodically against his notepad. "I don't just suspect it," I admitted bitterly, my voice strained. "I know." 5 agonizing days later, Elias summoned me. He handed over a thick envelope, his expression grim. "Brace yourself," he warned. I hesitated briefly before tearing it open. Each image within seared into my memory, raw and painful. Nicole smiling openly, her eyes bright in ways I hadn't seen in years, alongside a man I didn't recognize. They stood intimately close, laughing carelessly in a motel parking lot. Then, the damning evidence, a passionate embrace, a kiss unmistakably filled with intent. My heart lurched painfully, twisting violently within my chest. This wasn't just an affair. Nicole was living another life entirely, one she chose deliberately and repeatedly. Rage, heartbreak, humiliation, it all surged simultaneously, blinding and overwhelming. I waited that night, my pulse hammering violently with every passing second. Nicole returned home late, carefree until she saw the photos scattered on the dining table. Her confident facade shattered instantly. "What's this, Dean?" she whispered, voice trembling, barely audible. "You tell me, Nicole." My voice was ice, piercing the silence between us. She swallowed hard, eyes darting desperately across the table. Her excuses died unspoken, trapped by undeniable proof. "How long?" I demanded, slamming my fist onto the table. She flinched, visibly shaken by my sudden rage. "Dean, please." She pleaded weakly, tears flooding her eyes. "Answer me," I shouted, my voice echoing through the hollow house that once held our shared dreams. "I don't know. Months, maybe longer," Nicole finally confessed, collapsing into tears. "You destroyed us," I stated, each word measured, laced with venom. "You ended our family." The next morning, I initiated divorce proceedings, but vengeance simmered hot beneath my composed exterior. Nicole believed the worst was over, unaware it had barely begun. Over the following days, I crafted a meticulous plan, carefully structuring her downfall. Nicole thought she had leverage, thought her charm could soften me into a favorable settlement. She sat beside me one evening, her hand gently resting on my knee. "Dean, can't we handle this privately?" Her voice dripped sweetness, desperate for cooperation. I almost laughed. The audacity. Instead, I played along, allowing her false hope to grow. A compromise? I pretended to consider. She smiled gently, certain she'd regained control. "Exactly." I nodded slowly, feeling only disgust. "Let me think about it." She never suspected the financial ruin awaiting her. Behind her back, I coordinated with my attorney, Teresa Lane, to freeze our joint accounts, protect our shared assets, and position myself advantageously. Adultery carried harsh consequences in our jurisdiction, and I possessed undeniable proof. But financial ruin alone wasn't enough. I wanted Nicole to lose everything she valued: her image, her security, her dignity. Digging deeper into her secret life, I discovered her main lover, Anthony, was also married. The revelation ignited a sinister idea. I sought out Anthony's wife, Caroline, a quiet, devoted woman utterly unaware of her husband's deception. Caroline met me hesitantly, eyes wary, in a small cafe downtown. "Why are we meeting?" she asked softly. "Because you deserve to know the truth," I answered calmly, pushing forward evidence of our spouse's betrayal. She flipped through the damning photos, her expression collapsing into shock and despair. "Why?" she whispered brokenly. "Because they're selfish," I replied coldly, leaning closer. "But we don't have to let them get away with this." Initially reluctant, Caroline quickly hardened as we devised a ruthless strategy. Together, we'd publicly humiliate Nicole and Anthony, destroying their carefully crafted facades of integrity. We distributed the photos anonymously, strategically placed to cause maximum devastation. Their workplaces, families, and social circles received undeniable evidence of their treachery. Within days, their reputations crumbled. Nicole's friends vanished, her family turned away in shame, and her career imploded spectacularly when evidence surfaced of inappropriate relationships involving influential clients. Anthony suffered similarly, Caroline mercilessly stripping him of everything. His career evaporated overnight, his friends recoiled in disgust, and his financial security shattered irreparably. Finally, Nicole arrived at our house, broken, begging shamelessly at the doorstep. "Dean, please, I'm sorry," she sobbed, makeup streaking her once proud face. "A sorry won't fix what you've done," I said coldly, stepping forward. "Remember this humiliation, Nicole, because it's your legacy now." Then, with deliberate finality, I slammed the door, listening as her muffled sobs faded into silence. But even as she crumbled, I fell hollow. True vengeance required more, a complete dismantling of the life she'd betrayed me for. As I stood alone in the empty house, swirling whiskey bitter on my tongue, I understood clearly. Nicole had opened this storm, but I would ensure its fury consumed her completely. This was only the beginning. Nicole's downfall had barely started, and my revenge was far from over. After Nicole's tearful collapse at my doorstep, I felt a hollow emptiness rather than triumph. Watching her shattered and desperate wasn't the satisfaction I'd anticipated. It was merely the overture of the elaborate symphony of vengeance I'd composed in the darkest hours of my grief. My once vibrant home had transformed into a cold mausoleum of betrayal, echoing silently with the ghostly whispers of happier days. In the sleepless nights that followed, I found myself tracing back our life together, dissecting memories under the harsh microscope of truth. Nicole and I met young, two ambitious students whose romance blossomed quickly into marriage. She had been my first love, my only love, and now, in the aftermath of betrayal, my tormentor. My mornings had devolved into a bitter routine, waking early, swallowing strong, acrid coffee in solitude, eyes red-rimmed from insomnia. I'd pace the empty halls of our home, haunted by the remnants of our past. Nicole's presence lingered, mocking me from every photograph, every forgotten memento. But vengeance demanded my strength, and though my heart fractured with each remembered tenderness, the resolve in my soul hardened into steel. Nicole's deception became clearer, deeper, and more humiliating with every new revelation. Elias, the investigator, continued unraveling her hidden life. She hadn't limited herself to Anthony. There were others. Elias handed over another damning dossier, this one thicker, more grotesque in its details. The photos revealed multiple clandestine meetings, motels, upscale restaurants, and dimly lit bars. Messages filled with explicit, intimate confessions ignited a fresh wave of nausea and rage. Nicole hadn't just cheated. She had embraced infidelity as a lifestyle. My days darkened further when I discovered she had even vacationed with Anthony, constructing elaborate lies about work conferences. I remembered those trips vividly. Her distant phone calls filled with subtle impatience, hastily ended with promises of returning home soon. Now, the stark reality of those lies stabbed mercilessly into my psyche. But amid betrayal's suffocating gloom, an idea took root. Nicole's undoing required precision, public spectacle, and irrevocable devastation. My revenge would not be simple. It would be unforgettable, meticulous, and chillingly deliberate. Nicole had always prided herself on her social standing. Her perfect image meticulously crafted and zealously guarded. For her, appearance and reputation were sacred. Losing them would be her ultimate nightmare. That realization guided my next steps. I meticulously planted seeds of doubt and disgrace within her precious circles. Anonymous packages arrived at her social club, workplaces, and charitable organizations, filled with printed messages, intimate texts, and scandalous images of her betrayals. Soon, whispers transformed into scandalous outcries, outrage swelling rapidly within her elite community. Within days, Nicole became an outcast, a woman scorned, whispered about in cafes, pitted in hushed conversations. Friends she cherished publicly disavowed her, horrified by the revelations. She lost committee memberships, charity positions, and even invitations to social events once considered her birthright. As her fall from grace deepened, I felt brief flickers of gratification, yet the void inside persisted, driving me toward an even more personal reckoning. My daughters, Sophia and Maddie, had become unwitting participants in Nicole's treachery. For months, they'd subtly encouraged their mother, suggesting modern relationships might thrive better in openness. Foolishly, they'd assumed I was equally informed, equally interested. Their ignorance and naivete amplified my anguish, and though I still loved them deeply, a wall of betrayal and resentment divided us. Sophia reached out first, her voice fragile, heavy with remorse. "Dad, we need to talk," she said, hesitation evident in every syllable. We met at a small cafe, a neutral ground tainted neither by Nicole's presence nor our broken home. Maddie arrived moments later, eyes red from sleepless nights. Silence stretched painfully between us before Maddie finally broke it, voice trembling. "Dad, we're so sorry," she choked out, her hands nervously gripping her coffee mug. "We never thought. You never thought to ask me." I interrupted, my voice low and edged with quiet anger. "Did either of you consider how I might feel about my marriage becoming a spectacle?" Sophia's eyes brimmed with tears, guilt etching deep lines across her face. "We thought you both were unhappy. Mom kept saying you agreed with everything. And you believed her," I replied bitterly. "Did you think so little of me?" Both girls lowered their eyes, shame silencing them. Seeing their genuine anguish softened my anger slightly, though forgiveness still lay far beyond reach. "I'm not cutting you out of my life," I said at last, my voice softening slightly. "But I can't forget that your interference helped destroy my marriage. Give me time." They nodded meekly, tears streaming freely, quietly mourning the innocence they'd lost. As Nicole's downfall accelerated, her desperation grew increasingly evident. Having lost her social status and support system, financial ruin swiftly followed. Teresa Lane, my fiercely competent lawyer, ensured Nicole couldn't drain shared accounts or access hidden assets. When the divorce hearing arrived, Nicole appeared disheveled, broken, humiliated, her bravado stripped away completely. "Dean, please," Nicole pleaded pathetically in court. "Don't do this." I stared at her coldly, unsympathetically. "You did this to yourself." The judge, stern and impartial, delivered a verdict that left Nicole financially destitute. She lost our home, was granted no alimony, and her lavish lifestyle vanished instantly. As her world crumbled publicly, I felt a fleeting satisfaction. Revenge had begun to taste sweet, but more was required to balance the scales of betrayal. Anthony, her primary lover, resurfaced briefly, attempting to reconcile with Caroline, promising contrition, and pleading for forgiveness. Caroline, resolute in her contempt, exposed his betrayal further. She published anonymous blogs detailing his indiscretions, ensuring no potential employer could ignore his damaged character. Soon Anthony was unemployed, unemployable, living a shadow of his former existence, stripped of dignity and respect. Nicole reached out desperately to her other paramours, seeking refuge and sympathy. But each lover abandoned her swiftly, refusing contact, their superficial affection unable to withstand the harsh glare of scandal. One by one, Nicole's lifelines evaporated, leaving her isolated and utterly alone. I watched from afar, satisfaction intertwined with a lingering melancholy. The woman I'd loved passionately for decades had chosen deceit over loyalty, vanity over trust, and now she reaped the consequences. But my soul ached, a scarred and hollow battlefield littered with memories of happier times. Nicole's final humiliation came swiftly. Unable to afford even basic comforts, she moved into a shabby, forgotten apartment, ironically close to the motel where she'd met Anthony. Her lavish dresses replaced by thrift store relics, her polished elegance disintegrated into hopelessness. One evening, Sophia arrived at my doorstep unannounced, holding a trembling envelope. "Dad, please," she whispered, handing it to me gently. "Read this." Alone later, I unfolded pages filled with heartfelt apologies, confessions of regret and guilt. My daughter's genuine sorrow cracked through my hardened defenses, softening my resentment slightly, opening the smallest possibility of reconciliation. Yet Nicole's betrayal still haunted me, relentless, unforgiving. Her final text arrived, a quiet plea for forgiveness. But my heart, wounded and scarred, refused absolution. With measured resolve, I deleted her message unanswered, choosing instead the catharsis of silence. Standing beneath the fading twilight, I drew a deep breath, absorbing the quiet calm. Revenge had not brought complete peace, but justice had been served, and that satisfaction would suffice, for now. Yet even as I began moving forward, an unsettling feeling remained, whispering ominously that Nicole's story, and mine, still had one devastating act left to unfold. Despite Nicole's devastating downfall, the relief I'd hoped for didn't come easily. Our home, once filled with warmth, now echoed with emptiness. I focused my energy on work, burying myself in long hours to avoid confronting the loneliness waiting at home. Sophia and Maddie tried bridging the gap between us. They checked in often, their voices timid, unsure, as though walking across thin ice. I appreciated their attempts, though trust between us was slow to rebuild. One quiet evening, Elias Parker knocked at my door again. He handed me a final envelope. Inside were messages Nicole had sent recently, desperately reaching out to old acquaintances for help. Each plea was ignored or sharply rebuffed. Her desperation was palpable, but for the first time, seeing this didn't bring me pleasure. Instead, sadness settled in my chest, heavy and unexpected. "Is this enough?" Elias asked quietly, watching my reaction closely. I sighed deeply, looking away. "It's never enough, Elias. But it's done. Revenge leaves scars on both sides," he said softly. "Just be careful you don't lose yourself." His words lingered after he left. Alone, I poured myself whiskey, the bitter taste matching my mood. Revenge had felt necessary, righteous even, but the toll was greater than I'd anticipated. Nicole had destroyed our marriage, yet in tearing her down, I'd also stripped away pieces of myself. The next morning, I visited the cafe again to meet Sophia and Maddie. Their hopeful expressions were cautious, but sincere. We talked softly about small things, memories, everyday moments from their childhood. Slowly, laughter returned, gentle at first, but gradually more genuine. "Dad," Sophia finally said, her voice serious yet gentle. "Have you spoken to Mom?" I hesitated, my throat tight. "No, there's nothing left to say." Maddie reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Maybe not, but forgiveness isn't for her. It's for you." Their words resonated deeply. Forgiveness felt impossible, yet I knew bitterness would only trap me further. That evening, as twilight dimmed the sky, I found myself driving toward Nicole's small, run-down apartment. Outside, I hesitated, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Finally, I stepped out and knocked softly. The door creaked open. Nicole stood there, thin, weary, eyes red-rimmed and startled. "Dean," she whispered, voice trembling. I exhaled slowly, emotions tangled and overwhelming. "I'm not here to fight, Nicole. I just need closure." She nodded slowly, stepping back to let me in. The small, shabby apartment spoke clearly of her ruined life. Shame and regret hung heavily in the silence between us. "Are you happy now?" she asked softly, eyes fixed on the floor. Did I suffer enough? I sighed, my anger strangely absent. It was never about happiness, Nicole. I just needed justice. She looked up then, genuine pain etched deeply into her face. "I destroyed everything, didn't I?" I met her gaze evenly. We both did. A quiet understanding settled between us. A fragile peace, forged from the ruins of our shared past. As I left, stepping back into the cool night air, I felt lighter, freer than I'd been in months. Revenge had exacted its heavy toll. Now, perhaps, it was finally time to heal. After my final confrontation with Nicole, I felt the relentless weight of bitterness slowly lift. Revenge had been satisfying in the moment, but it left a lingering emptiness. Life demanded more than vengeance. It required healing. Days turned into weeks, each morning bringing small glimpses of renewal. The quiet loneliness that once haunted me gradually faded into comforting solitude. I immersed myself back into work, reconnecting with old colleagues, finding satisfaction again in routine and stability. Sophia and Maddie visited regularly, their presence increasingly natural, less burdened by past tensions. One evening, Maddie approached me cautiously after dinner, clearly nervous about something. "Dad, I've been seeing Mom," she said, watching for my reaction carefully. "She's struggling a lot." I considered her words quietly. "I suppose we all are." Maddie paused, hesitant. "She misses you. Do you think you'll ever forgive her?" Forgiveness. It felt impossible before, but now, maybe it wasn't entirely beyond reach. "I don't know," I answered honestly, sighing deeply. "But I'm tired of holding on to this anger." Encouraged, Maddie nodded. "Maybe talking to her would help both of you." Her suggestion lingered, planting a seed of quiet contemplation. Eventually, curiosity and perhaps lingering affection drew me back to Nicole's doorstep. She opened the door, clearly stunned to see me again. "Dean," she whispered softly, eyes wide. "Can we talk?" I asked simply. She stepped aside, allowing me in. Her apartment looked slightly improved, neat though modest. We sat awkwardly at first, silence stretching until finally I spoke. "Nicole, I've come because I can't keep living in anger." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, Dean. Every day, I regret what I did." "I know you do," I said quietly. "I've seen you suffer." Maybe that was enough. "I ruined everything we built," she whispered. "But I never stopped loving you." My heart clenched painfully. Love wasn't enough to erase betrayal, but it softened my resentment. "We can't change the past, but maybe we can let go of it." Nicole nodded tearfully, gratitude evident. "Thank you for saying that." I left shortly after, lighter than I'd felt in months. Forgiveness wasn't complete yet, but its possibility filled me with newfound peace. Months passed quickly. The wounds slowly healed, leaving scars that no longer burned so fiercely. Sophia and Maddie became a source of steady joy again, our bond stronger than ever. Nicole and I maintained polite distance, respectful yet gently forgiving of the hurt we'd caused each other. Eventually, my life found balance again. Friends gathered around me, bringing laughter back into my home. Work became fulfilling once more. Slowly, without even noticing, I'd rebuilt what betrayal had shattered. One afternoon, Sophia called me excitedly. "Dad, Maddie's engaged. She wants you and Mom at the wedding." Hearing the news filled me with joy and slight hesitation. Seeing Nicole publicly again would be difficult, but the occasion was too meaningful to let discomfort rule. The wedding day arrived bright and clear. Maddie looked radiant, happiness shining in her eyes. At the ceremony, I stood beside Nicole, who was dressed simply, humbly, yet beautifully. "I never imagined we'd stand here together again," she said softly, smiling hesitantly. I looked at her gently. Life has strange ways of bringing us back around. As our daughter exchanged vows, tears filled our eyes, this time from joy, not sorrow. Later, at the reception, Nicole approached me again. "Dean," she said, voice tentative yet hopeful. "Can we start again, as friends?" I paused, emotions swirling gently. After a moment, I nodded. "I'd like that." And with that simple agreement, the heavy past finally lifted. Forgiveness wasn't easy, nor quick, but it brought peace I hadn't thought possible. Betrayal had once shattered us. Revenge had briefly satisfied, but ultimately, only forgiveness could set us free. And standing there, watching our family dance and laugh beneath gentle lights, I knew we'd finally found our way home again.